Welcome to Pink Blade.
Here, we don't just watch stories, we step inside them.
Today, we're diving deep into one chapter only.
And when we say one chapter, we really mean it. We're not just looking at a standard pilot episode. We are talking about the absolute ignition point of a cultural phenomenon.
We're looking at Bridgerton, Season 1, Episode 1, Diamond of the First Water.
Such a great title.
It is. Now, before we get completely swept away by, the wisteria and the string quartets, we have to establish the rules of engagement for this particular deep dive.
Okay, yes, this is important.
We know so many of you have probably read the Julia Quinn books, and we know many of you have binged every season that's out. But today, for our purposes, we are operating under a strict embargo.
A very strict one. It is crucial. We are going to treat this deep dive as if we have just watched this single hour of television and absolutely nothing else. We are not looking into the crystal ball of Season 2 or what might happen in Season 3. We're not even going to discuss the books in a way that spoils any future plot points. We are staying firmly in 1813 in this specific, brilliant introduction to the world.
That's the challenge and the fun of it. Whether you've seen this show 10 times or this is your first time pressing play, we're all stripping away that future knowledge. We're living in the moment with these characters.
We're going to share their anxiety, their excitement, and that just overwhelming sensory overload that the first episode throws at you.
And sensory overload is definitely the right term for it. From the very first frame, the creators make it so clear that this isn't just a story about people, it's a story about a world.
A very specific, very high-pressure ecosystem.
Let's start right there. The setting. We are dropped immediately into London, 1813. But like you said, this is not some dusty documentary version of London. This is the ton.
The ton, yes. It's a term that comes from le bon ton, which means, good manners or good form. But here, in the context of this show, and especially in this first episode, the ton really operates like a character in its own right.
It really does. It's not just a group of people.
No, it's a living, breathing organism. It has its own rules, its own predators, and its own immune system, really. If you step out of line, it will attack.
It feels incredibly claustrophobic, doesn't it? Even when you get these huge, sweeping, gorgeous shots of Grosvenor Square or the Royal Crescent, the actual psychological feeling is that everyone is trapped.
They're in a fishbowl.
A total fishbowl. Everyone is watching everyone else all the time, just waiting for someone to tap on the glass.
A fishbowl is almost too gentle a way to put it. I mean, the source material and the show itself describe this setting as a competitive marriage mart.
Right.
A marketplace. We really need to just sit with that phrase for a moment. This isn't just a social season for fun and parties. It is a commodities exchange.
And the commodities being traded are the debutantes.
Bluntly, yes. I mean, the episode is literally titled Diamond of the First Water. Now, that sounds lovely and sparkly on the surface, doesn't it?
Of course.
But first water is a gemology term. It's a grade. It's about assessing a stone for clarity and ultimately for value. The title itself is commodifying the protagonist, Daphne Bridgerton, before we even really know her.
That really strips the romance right out of the concept when you put it like that. We see these girls getting dressed, they're being tightened and polished and prepped for presentation, and the sources actually use the word hunting.
They do. The mothers are hunting for suitors for their daughters. It is a marketplace of reputation and appearance. And the stakes are not, will I get a date to the prom?
Not at all.
The stakes are total economic and social survival.
That is what makes the tension in this premiere so incredibly palpable. If one of these young women from this very specific strata of society fails to secure a good match during her debut season, her value just plummets.
It's a depreciating asset model. It's brutal. If she doesn't marry, she becomes a burden on her family. She has absolutely no career prospects, no political rights to speak of, and certainly no independence.
It's terrifying when you think about it. It completely recontextualizes all the pretty dresses and the glittering balls. They aren't just fashion statements.
No, they're battle armor.
Or marketing materials.
Exactly.
Right.
And the showrunners, specifically Chris Van Dusen and the whole team at Shondaland, they made a very deliberate choice to visualize these high stakes through color and through design. They did not want a subtle history lesson.
No, this is television.
They wanted high contrast, immediate visual storytelling that tells you exactly who is winning and who is losing this game before a single line of dialogue is even spoken.
Okay, let's unpack that color coding. Because you're right, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It is almost like they're wearing sports team uniforms.
It is.
You have two main families that establish the poles of this entire world, the Bridgertons and the Featheringtons.
So let's start with the Bridgertons. If you look at the production design notes, their whole aesthetic is rooted in something very, very specific. It's called Wedgwood blue.
Wedgwood like the ceramics.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fancy plates and vases my grandmother had.
Exactly like that. That classic, very pale matte blue with the white relief that you'd see in a museum or, yes, a very fancy grandmother's cabinet. But think about what Wedgwood actually represents.
This is very classical.
It's neoclassical. It's symmetrical. It absolutely screams old money.
It's understated, isn't it? It says, we don't need to shout to be heard. We established our value generations and generations ago.
There's a deep psychological effect to it, and the sources point out that Daphne starts this episode dressed almost exclusively in these pale blues and white.
It's that porcelain aesthetic.
That's the phrase, yes. It signals purity, of course, but it also signals family unity. They are a brand. When the Bridgertons walk into a room, they are visually cohesive. They look like a perfectly matched set of fine china.
Beautiful, but maybe a little bit fragile. And definitely expensive.
And it implies she's part of a machine. You know, she isn't just Daphne, she is a Bridgerton. It's interesting, the costume notes mention that she shifts a little bit toward purple later on as she starts to mix with Simon's red palette. But here, in episode 1, she is pure Bridgerton blue.
And then on the complete other side of the spectrum, you have the counter-programming.
Oh, the Featheringtons.
The Featheringtons. I have to say, I love them, but my eyes genuinely hurt a little bit sometimes when they're all on screen together.
Well, that is entirely the point. The costume designer, Ellen Moroznik, and her team, they specifically went for what they call acid colors.
Acid colors.
Think citrus, lemon yellows, lime greens, these almost shockingly bright oranges and pinks.
The sources call their whole vibe bombastic and superficial. But what's so fascinating to me is that it's not just about them having bad taste. I think it would be too easy to just write them off as, you know, the ugly stepsisters trope.
I agree.
Their taste tells a story of complete desperation.
It's the story of new money trying, and mostly failing, to compete in an old money market. Portia Featherington, the mother, is basically using these colors as a giant, flashing billboard.
She needs her daughters to be seen.
That's it. That's it. In a sea of tasteful pastel blue and cream, how are you possibly going to get noticed? Well, you wear neon orange, you wear patterns that clash, you do anything to draw the eye.
There's a note here from one analysis that points out the Featheringtons are often described as looking like citrus fruits. It's sour, it's a bit sharp, but it also really highlights the immense pressure that Portia is under. She doesn't have the Bridgerton reputation to lean on.
Not at all.
She has to force her girls into these loud, aggressive patterns because she's terrified of them being invisible.
And that deep fear of invisibility directly drives the physical pain that we see in this episode. I mean, we have that really visceral moment with Prudence Featherington very early on.
The fainting scene. In front of the queen.
In front of the queen, yes. The tight lacing of the corset. Now, we can get into the historical accuracy of tight lacing a bit later. Spoiler alert, the history police definitely have some thoughts on that. But just narratively, look at what is happening there.
It's a perfect metaphor.
It is. Portia is literally squeezing her daughter into a mold that does not fit her to the point of actual physical collapse just so she can be presented properly.
It's a metaphor for the entire social season. Fit the mold or pass out trying. It establishes the very real physical toll of this so-called marketplace.
And just to ramp up the tension in that Featherington household even more, we have the great disruption, the arrival of Marina Thompson.
Marina is such a fascinating wrench to throw into the gears of episode 1. She's a distant cousin. She arrives with basically nothing, no fortune, no powerful connections. But she has the one thing the Featherington sisters just don't.
Effortless charm. And, well, effortless beauty.
She doesn't need the citrus colors, does she? She just walks in, and the sources say she immediately upstages everyone in the room. This creates instant domestic tension.
So if you're looking at the board, you've got the Bridgertons who are struggling with the pressure of maintaining their perfection. Then you have the Featheringtons struggling with the sheer panic of competition.
And then you have the third pillar of this premier's conflict, the rogue element.
Simon Bassett, the Duke of Hastings.
The man who walked into London absolutely determined not to participate in any of this whatsoever.
He is the anti-suitor. He's only returned to London to settle his late father's affairs. He has zero interest in the marriage mart. In fact, he is actively being pursued by what the sources delightfully call thirsty mothers.
That is a vivid image, isn't it?
Uh.
It sets up the central conflict so beautifully. You have Daphne, who must marry well to satisfy the queen's new label of diamond.
You have Simon, who absolutely refuses to marry, for reasons we later find out. And then you have the Featheringtons just desperately trying to claw their way into the conversation at all.
And all of this is happening under this very specific narrative umbrella that makes this show feel so different from anything we'd really seen before in the genre. We got to talk about the hook.
Yes.
Why does this episode work so well as a turning point? Not just for the story, but for the whole genre. Because, let's be honest, before Bridgerton dropped, when you thought Regency romance, what came to mind?
Oh, quiet drawing rooms, repressed feelings, a lot of beige.
So much beige. You thought of Jane Austen adaptations where, like, a lingering hand touch is the absolute climax of the entire movie.
Exactly, a gloved hand touch at that.
And Bridgerton basically takes a hammer to that entire expectation in the first few minutes.
There is a very, very specific signal the show sends out to the audience right away. It's almost like a warning shot. It says, okay, listen, this is not your grandmother's period drama.
And it involves Anthony Bridgerton, a tree, and a soprano.
We are talking, of course, about the opening scene with Anthony and Sienna, the opera singer.
The tree scene, as it's affectionately known among fans, it is explicit, it is messy, it's very energetic.
It serves such a critical function. One of the sources notes that Anthony's naked arse is exposed almost immediately, and that tells the viewer, put away all of your expectations of prudishness. This show is going to deal with modern sensibilities when it comes to sex and desire.
It's going to be messy and complicated.
But even beyond the initial shock value, let's look at what it does for the character of Anthony. He is the eldest son, the Viscount. He is the head of this pristine Wedgwood Blue family. He is supposed to be the paragon of responsibility.
And there he is, up against a tree with his mistress, checking his watch. That detail always gets me. The watch.
The watch is key. It's so good. It shows that even his pleasure is sort of transactional and scheduled. But more importantly, it establishes his hypocrisy right from the jump.
Which pays off later.
It pays off almost immediately in the episode when he starts trying to police Daphne's suitors. He is indulging in the modern world, sleeping with whomever he wants, while trying to keep his sister locked in the traditional world where she has to be this pristine, untouched object.
It makes him really complex and frankly, kind of unlikable in this first hour.
Oh, very unlikable.
But it sets up the gender dynamics of this world perfectly. Men can play, women must be perfect.
And the other major modern hook is the voice, the narration that frames everything.
Lady Whistledown, voiced by the absolute legend, Julie Andrews.
Which is just such a flex, isn't it? Getting Mary Poppins to voice your anonymous scandal sheet, it's genius. But it completely changes the mechanics of the story.
Well, think about the function of Whistledown. In other shows, like, say, Gossip Girl, the narrator is often just a plot device to move information along. But here, Whistledown feels more like a surveillance state.
That's a great way to put it, a surveillance state. She holds the power to completely ruin a reputation with a single sheet of paper. In this pilot, her introduction sets that tone of high-stakes, constant judgment.
The characters aren't just performing for each other in the ballrooms. They're performing for this invisible, all-seeing judge who seems to know everything.
It adds this layer of paranoia to all the glitter and the glamour. It forces every character to wear a mask constantly because they never, ever know who is watching or listening.
So we have the sex, we have the surveillance, and then we have the setup of the main romance.
Yeah.
The episode ends with this classic, beloved trope that just pulls viewers in immediately.
The fake courtship.
Or the ruse.
I love this trope. If you're a fan of romance novels, this is your bread and butter. But the question is, why does it work so well here? Why does it feel so fresh and compelling?
I think it works because it's so mutually beneficial in this very logical, almost business-like way. It's a deal. Simon is being hunted by all the ambitious mothers.
He can't get a moment's peace.
And Daphne's being completely ignored by suitors because her overbearing brother Anthony has scared every single one of them away.
Right. Anthony's meddling has basically ruined her prospects. He made her seem so unattainable that she became damaged goods in a way. People think there must be something wrong with her because no one is making an offer.
So the deal they strike is simple. If they pretend to be courting, the mothers will finally leave Simon alone because he's taken.
And more importantly for her, all the eligible men will suddenly want Daphne precisely because the most eligible man, the Duke, wants her. It elevates her value on the market.
It's the basic law of supply and demand. The Duke creates scarcity. He validates her worth to the rest of the marketplace. It's genius.
It is genius. But the real hook for the audience isn't the logic of it, it's the dramatic irony.
Oh, absolutely.
We know they're pretending, but the chemistry between them suggests something entirely different.
The chemistry is doing a lot of heavy lifting from their very first meeting. It creates that immediate investment where you find yourself just screaming at the screen, "You are not pretending, look at the way you're looking at her."
You're already rooting for the ruse to fail.
And that brings us to our deep dive into the specific scenes that really built this chemistry in this world so effectively. We've selected 3 moments from this episode that I think really define the show's DNA right from the start.
Okay, let's start with the one that gives us the entire psychological underpinning of our hero. The scene with Lady Danbury and a very young Simon.
This is a flashback scene, and it is absolutely devastating. Up until this point in the episode, Simon is just this handsome, brooding, slightly mysterious duke. But here we see him as a child.
And he's being cruelly rejected by his own father because he has a stutter.
The father is just monstrous. He basically calls his own son an idiot and says the boy is dead to him because he is imperfect. It's just heart-wrenching to watch. And then Lady Danbury steps in.
Adjoa Endo, who plays Lady Danbury, delivers a speech here that I think is one of the absolute best in the entire series. She turns to young Simon and she tells him, "I sharpened my wit, my wardrobe, and my eye, and I made myself the most terrifying creature in any room I entered."
The most terrifying creature. I mean, I got chills just reading that line again in our notes. It's such a specific and powerful ambition. Not the most beautiful, not the most respected.
Terrifying.
So why is this scene so powerful? First, it establishes Lady Danbury as the kingmaker. She is the mother figure who saved him, who saw his potential. But more importantly, it explains the Simon we meet in 1813.
Right. It explains why he's so aloof, why he's so cold and pushes everyone away.
Because he constructed himself to be that way. That whole rake persona, that emotional armor he wears, it was built by design, piece by piece, to protect that wounded little boy inside.
Lady Danbury taught him to weaponize his presence, his silence, his looks, so that no one could ever get close enough to hurt him the way his own father did.
It completely transforms him from just a hot guy who doesn't want to get married into a character with this deep traumatic motivation. He isn't refusing marriage because he wants to party.
No, he's refusing it because he refuses to continue the bloodline of the man who so cruelly rejected him. It's an act of vengeance.
Precisely. And that raises the stakes of the romance immediately. Daphne isn't just trying to win his heart. She's going up against a lifetime of carefully fortified defenses.
Which leads us perfectly to our second scene, where Daphne proves she has some pretty impressive defenses of her own. The dark walk scene with Nigel Burbrook.
Nigel Burbrook. The slime of the season.
The absolute worst. He corners her in the garden. He gets handsy. He completely refuses to take no for an answer. It's a moment where, in any traditional story, the hero would swoop in and save the day.
And Simon does arrive. But he arrives just a moment too late to actually save her.
Because she has already saved herself.
She punches Nigel, a solid right hook, square on the jaw.
Some fans called it the two-piece in a biscuit.
Yes. What I love so much about this scene is the subversion of that trope. It establishes that Daphne is not just some passive diamond to be admired. She has fight in her.
She doesn't need saving physically. She needs saving socially from the fallout of what she just did.
And look at Simon's reaction when he arrives. He isn't threatened by her strength. He isn't overly protective in that condescending, let me handle this, little lady kind of way. He's genuinely impressed.
That is the absolute key. That moment solidifies their mutual respect. It's the serializing that so many of the reviews mentioned. He realizes she isn't just a porcelain doll. She's a partner. She can handle herself.
And that budding partnership culminates in our third deep dive scene. The dance and the fireworks.
This is the moment the ruse officially begins. They step onto the dance floor at the Vauxhall Ball to seal their pact.
And the atmosphere is just electric. You have these practical fireworks going off in the background, which, by the way, the creator Chris Van Dusen said were real on-set fireworks, not just CGI.
Which you can tell. It adds to the genuine reaction of the actors and all the extras. Van Dusen actually called this his favorite moment of the episode, noting that the energy was just palpable on set.
It captures that magical element of the show so perfectly. It's that blend of the music, the visual spectacle, the costumes, and just the raw chemistry of the acting.
And it creates a promise to the viewer, doesn't it? It says, stick with us. We are going to give you capital R romance, we are going to give you breathtaking beauty, and we are going to give you joy.
Speaking of giving us beauty, we have to go behind the scenes for a bit.
Yeah.
Because you simply cannot talk about Bridgerton Episode 1 without talking about the look of the show.
We mentioned the colors earlier, but the sheer scale of the costume production is, it's just mind-boggling.
I have the numbers right here. The costume designer, Ellen Mirojnick, and her incredible team, they created approximately 7,500 individual costumes for season 1.
7,500 in just 5 months.
In 5 months, that is an industrial military-level feat of production. It's practically an army's worth of uniform.
And they weren't just, renting these from a costume warehouse. They were designing and making them. And they had very specific rules for themselves. One of the big ones was the no bonnet rule.
This is fascinating to me. In historically accurate 1813 fashion, women of this class would have worn bonnets almost constantly when they were outdoors. But Mirojnick said no.
She said they wanted to avoid that very traditional, very beige and cream look of older period films.
Their guiding philosophy was that the look should be aspirational. The big question they asked was always, would a modern girl wear it today?
Which is why you see all the incredible layering. They used so much organza. They used embellishments like stones and flowers, and things that add a kind of depth and a modern fashion sensibility to that classic Regency silhouette. It's Regency, but it's Regency seen through a Vogue filter.
And that Vogue filter applies directly to the music, too. This was easily one of the biggest talking points after the episode dropped.
The Vitamin String Quartet covers.
Oh my gosh, yes. I remember watching that opening ball scene for the first time, and the music starts. And at first, you're just thinking, oh, this is pretty classical music. And then your brain does a little skip.
And you go, wait a minute, is that Ariana Grande?
It was Thank You Next.
It was, and it was absolutely perfect. Playing Thank You Next while a parade of debutantes are being presented to a line of potential suitors. I mean, it is lyrically relevant.
That's the brilliance of it. It's not just a gimmick. It acts as a bridge. If they had played actual, stuffy 1813 ballroom music, a modern audience might feel detached. It would feel like a museum piece.
But by playing Thank You Next, or later, Maroon 5's Girls Like You, they are signaling to us that the emotions in this story are modern and relatable.
It tells us that these people, deep down, feel the same way we do about dating, about rejection, about desire.
Girls Like You plays during that scene in the drawing room where Daphne is just waiting for callers who never arrive. It's so cheeky, but it works. And then having In My Blood by Shawn Mendes playing during the dance where they concoct the ruse.
It adds this driving, modern angst and passion to the scene. It's such a stroke of genius.
It makes the show feel immediately accessible. It creates this emotional bridge between the viewer on their couch and the character in their corset.
And one other behind-the-scenes element we really must touch on is the intimacy coordination. We talked about the tree scene, but Chris Van Dusen has emphasized that every single intimate scene was choreographed like a stunt.
I think that's so important to mention. It wasn't just, okay, go make out against a tree. It was safe, it was planned, it was rehearsed, and that safety is what allows the actors to really commit to the performance.
Absolutely. It creates a safe container where that incredible chemistry can actually flourish, because the actors aren't worrying about their boundaries. The boundaries have already been set for them.
So let's pivot for a moment to the people who brought these characters to life. We have some really interesting reflections from the cast and creators, specifically about this first episode.
Chris Van Dusen, the creator, has been very vocal about his approach to the world building. He talks a lot about opening up the world of the original books.
And specifically, he talks about the concept of color-conscious casting.
Yes, he makes this really important distinction between colorblind and color-conscious. Colorblind casting implies you don't see race, that it's not part of the character's reality.
Whereas color-conscious means you do see it, and you build a world where it matters and has its own history and logic.
And in this episode, we see that embodied in Queen Charlotte, who is played by the magnificent Golda Rosheuvel. She is a black queen. And the show's lore, which is hinted at, suggests that her marriage to the king is what elevated people of color to dukedoms and to the highest levels of society.
It creates this fascinating alternate history. It changes the entire social fabric. So it's not just we hired a diverse cast of actors, it's we created a diverse society with its own internal logic.
Van Dusen also notes that being an American probably allowed him to take more liberties with the story.
Yeah.
He wasn't so bogged down by, the rigid historical accuracy of British class system documentaries. He wanted to make entertainment.
And speaking of entertainment, Adjoa Ando, or Lady Danbury, has a really great take on her relationship with Simon. She views it as a true mother-son bond that directly replaces the toxic rejection of his father.
She says that her role in his life is to demand that Simon be worthy of the attention you command. That's such a powerful motivation for a character.
It is. She isn't just nagging him to get married for the sake of it. She's demanding that he step into his own power and stop hiding.
Which is exactly what we see her doing in episode 1. She is the catalyst. She's the one who literally pushes him back into society and into Daphne's path.
Now, we can't ignore the fans. The reaction to episode 1 was, well, it was explosive.
To put it mildly, I think the Ariana Grande moment was the viral hook that caught everyone.
Oh, for sure. There were so many tweets and Reddit threads of people collectively realizing, wait a minute, I know this song. It was the click moment. It gave everyone permission. You know, it told people you're allowed to have fun with this show.
And another huge fan observation was about the shimmy.
The shimmy during the dance at the very end.
So fans actually found footage of the dance rehearsal, which was very technical, very proper, very stiff. But in the final cut of the show, Regé-Jean Page adds this little tiny shoulder shimmy and a spin.
It was improvised.
It was. And fans cite that specific, tiny 1-second moment as the moment they fell in love with the chemistry between them. It showed playfulness. It showed that Simon, despite all his broodiness, was actually having fun with Daphne.
Of course, where there are fans, there are also the history police.
There are always history police.
And they had a few things to say, mainly about the corsets, the tight lacing.
Right. The historical fashion experts were very quick to point out that with the empire waist silhouette, which sits right up under the bust, you don't actually need to tight-lace the waist. The silhouette doesn't require it.
So the pain we see portrayed in that Prudence scene is really narratively driven. It's not historically mandated for that style of dress.
And the tiaras. Apparently, unmarried women generally didn't wear tiaras. That was for married women.
True. But I think the general consensus seems to be that most viewers were happy to accept this as fantasy regency.
I agree.
It's a stylistic choice that's there to communicate princess or constriction, even if it's not textbook accurate.
And then there's Anthony.
Oh, Anthony.
The fan reaction to Anthony Bridgerton in episode 1 was pretty rough.
He is, for the most part, largely unlikable. He's controlling. He drives away all of Daphne's legitimate suitors. He's a massive hypocrite because of the whole situation with Sienna.
But the fans also noted the tree scene did make an impression.
It certainly did. It created a kind of love-to-hate dynamic right from the start. You're frustrated by him, but you're also kind of compelled by him.
Which is the perfect setup for a character in a long-form television show.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Diamond of the First Water, we have to ask the big thematic question. What is this episode really asking us, the audience?
I think it all really boils down to this. Can we ever truly escape the roles that society assigns to us, or are we all just forced to wear masks to survive?
That is the absolute core of it, isn't it? Look at the main characters we just discussed.
Simon is wearing the masks of the rake to hide his childhood stutter and the deep pain of his father's rejection.
Daphne is wearing the mask of the diamond, the perfect debutante, to hide her real anxiety and her deep desire for a genuine connection, not just a good financial transaction.
The Featheringtons are wearing these literal visual masks of bright, loud fabric to hide their financial desperation and social insecurity.
Everyone is performing. The entire ton is a stage, and the episode leaves us with this one tantalizing possibility.
That the fake relationship, the biggest performance of all, might be the only place where Simon and Daphne can actually be real with each other.
Because when the whole world thinks you're faking it, you can finally stop performing for the world. You can just start looking at the person who's right there in front of you.
Exactly. And that is a hook that definitely keeps you watching.
That was today's deep dive.
Same story. New layers.
This is Pink Blade.